decisions and a judge in court if it ever went that far. So that's basically what we do and how we do it.
That's very interesting. Thank you, Todd. The next thing we're going to talk about is bank-owned properties, foreclosures, or short sales. Do they affect the value of my house?
Yeah, Sherry, I have to answer that yes or no. Basically, in a subdivision or in a market area, if the vast majority of the sales are, they're not the vast majority, but the majority of the sales are bank-owned foreclosures or REOs, it absolutely affects the value in there because that becomes the market. The predominant sale in that area are those types of properties. So it would affect it. On the other hand, if in that market area or subdivision there are very few REOs, foreclosures, or short sales, and they, what we call flush quickly, they turn quickly, they sell quickly, then they have very little impact on value. So it's a yes or no. It depends on that particular market, where your home is.
That makes sense. What if I had an appraisal and wanted to change lenders? What happens then?
Basically, if you want to change lenders, that falls into what we call, we're controlled basically by a USPAP. It's Uniform Standards of Professional Appraisal Practice. And USPAP states very, very strictly that any change in client or lender requires a new appraisal assignment. It used to be years ago, we would, if someone wanted to change lenders, we would go in and say, okay, fine. We'd open up the report, unsign the report, change the lender's name or the client's name, charge maybe $50 to do that service, and off you go. But now, because of USPAP's changes, we cannot do that. What that means is we have to treat this as a new order. We have to do everything we did on the old assignment or the original assignment. The only thing we don't have to do is remeasure the house, because typically homes don't grow or shrink. But basically, we have to take pictures again because something may have changed in the house. We have to re-research from the time we did the original appraisal till the date that you want the lender changed. We have to re-research all that, try to find if there are any new sales or any new listings. If there are, then we have to change all that information. Even if we don't make changes, we still have to go back out, look at the comparables again, and take pictures of them, because there have been cases in the past, it doesn't happen often, but even one time is too often, where between those dates, a comparable may have burned down or it doesn't exist anymore. So things do change. So we have to be very careful what we do and how we do it. We don't charge as much for this service because, again, we don't do quite as much as we did before, but almost that much.
Okay, I know you talked about this a little when you were talking about how you actually do an appraisal, but how do you give or take away value for differences between my house and the houses you're comparing it to?
Okay, Sherry. Yeah, we did touch a little bit about that, but you know, some of the areas we can give adjustments to. There are things also that are absolute facts that we can make adjustments for. Like how many bedrooms are in this house and how many bedrooms are in comparable, how many bathrooms are there and how many are in the comparables. But there are things that are up to us at our discretion whether we can give adjustments to or not. One of them is what we talked about earlier, the effective age of the house. It's by our experience and knowledge how we rate the effective age of that house versus the actual age. So there are some gray areas in there how we arrive at those. One of the biggest things we can make adjustments for that we get questioned about often is a swimming pool. Some people ask us too, you know, I'm thinking about putting a pool in my house. Will it add value to the house? And we have to make a decision based on where the house is. One of the best examples I can make is, say, a subdivision up by the Budweiser plant, north side of Jacksonville, called San Mateo. They're very small houses. Typically, they're in the 800,000, 1,200, 1,500 square feet. There are some larger ones there. But typically, most people that would buy up in that market don't want a pool, don't know how to take care of a pool, never had a pool. They just don't consider it. We might give a value of $3,000 to $5,000 for that pool, and it might have cost $25,000 to put that pool in. So people typically need to really want to have and enjoy that pool because you won't get it back out of there. But then you go to, say, Julington Creek Plantation or a nice subdivision like that, put in that same pool, we might allow $10,000 to $12,000 for that pool. Still not enough because not everybody out there wants a pool either. But then you go to the King and the Bear or Marsh Landing or Queens Harbor or someplace like that. In certain areas of those that people expect pools in there, they're beautiful houses, we would allow probably every bit of what it costs to put that pool in. Now you take it one step further, you go to like a big house on the ocean, that pool probably wouldn't be put in, but a lot fancier pool with waterfalls and built-in spas and hot tubs and so forth, a lot of rock formations. We might allow more than it costs to put that pool in because people expect that pool to be in there. So a lot of the value of a pool is based on expectations and perceived values, not actually what that pool costs.
That's very interesting. We're going to open the up for questions at this point, and we have one question, and I think Todd gets this question a lot. After you're done with the inspection, do you have an idea what the property is worth?
Yeah, that's a very common question, and I have to answer that in two ways. One way is that by our laws, USPAP, one of the major ways an appraiser can absolutely lose their license, just have it revoked, not just taken away for a little bit, but absolutely have it revoked, is giving a copy of the appraisal to or discussing value with anyone other than the client. And by law, an appraiser's client is whoever orders the appraisal. In the case of a lender ordering the appraisal, they are the client, not the homeowner. Even if the homeowner writes me a check at the time of the appraisal and pays for it up front, I can't talk to them about value. They are not my client. So I can't, even if I knew the value, I could not talk to them about it. The other way I have to answer is that I would have no clue. Because again, if you remember what we talked about earlier, everything we do up until we actually write the report is just obtaining information. So until I do what we call our due diligence, until I leave your house, go look at the comparables, make notes about them, take pictures of them, and then do all of the adjustments, and then arrive at a value, until that point, I don't have a clue what the home is worth. So, you know, I had to answer that two ways. If I knew, I couldn't tell you, but I don't know until I do my due diligence.
I understand. Could you give us a little clarification of what is a comparable?
Sure. A comparable is basically, give you an example, if you were looking for a house and you had in your mind and you talked to your realtor and you decide you want roughly a 2,000 square foot, 4-bedroom, 2-bath home, brick with a 2-car garage with a half-acre lot in a nice neighborhood that's not a gated community. Say those were your major criteria. Well, then any home that meets that criteria would be a comparable. It's comparable to that house. It's the same thing we do, whether we're looking for comparable sales or comparable active listings. They have to be similar in size, similar in age, similar in construction. They have to have sold recently or currently on the market. They have to have similar amenities and similar location. Now that is basically a true comparable. So.
I think this is our last question of the morning, and I know it's something that you probably get asked a lot. I know I hear a lot. What are you seeing with the values of properties in the market right now?
Yeah, Sherry, that's a great question. Up until about 3 to 4 or 5 months ago or so, well, let me start out by saying we have to do what's called a market condition report. We call it 1004 MC. It's a requirement by Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac on every home that's federally insured that we do this market condition report. And the report consists of 3 time frames, from the date of the appraisal, 3 months back, or 0 to current, we call it, 4 to 6 months back, and 7 to 12 months back. Those are the 3 time frames, and then they want to know in there, we have to fill out how many homes sold, how many comparable homes sold in those 3 time frames, and then was it increasing, decreasing, or stable? You know, the trend of those from 12 months away to current. Are more homes selling or fewer homes selling, or during those 3 time frames is it pretty stable? We go by the number of homes that are on the market. You know, is the number increasing or decreasing? And then we have to come up with an absorption rate, and that's basically homes in that time frame. So many are selling and so many are on the market. What's the absorption rate? In other words, how long will it take? How many months will it take to sell that many homes that are on the market now based on how many have sold already? So is that trend increasing, decreasing, or stable? Then we have to go with a mean, which is different than an average, and I won't get into the arithmetic on that one, but the mean sales prices of the comparables. Is that trend increasing, decreasing, or stable? The days on the market for those sales, is that trend, you know, which trend is that? Then the mean listing price of comparables, and is that trend, you know, which way is that trend going? And the average days on the market for those, and the what we call a list to sell variance. And the list to sell variance is basically the difference between the listing price of a house and the selling price of a house. What's the variance, the percentage of that? And is that trend increasing or decreasing? And the good news is, like my pastor says, we got good news for you. Up until about 3, 4, 5 months ago, the trend was decreasing, and it had been for about 1 year to 2 years or so. But now we're finding more and more that it's becoming more stable. It's not increasing yet, but it's starting to stabilize. So that's great news.
That is awesome news. We are seeing the same thing, so that's great. Well, thank you so much for joining us at our website.